I feel bad for Ciaran. I think I've probably had to see this guy 4 times this week already online, and here we are again. He's probably sick of talking to us, but you know what? Like I say this all the time, we don't always agree on things, but one of the things that I really do appreciate about the leadership at SGI right now is at least we're talking. And we're trying to find common ground where we can kind of meet in the middle a little bit. They have a mandate to cut costs, or not cut costs, but save costs. We have a mandate to make a living kind of deal. So we're just trying to figure out how do we help each other get what we both want. So Ciaran, if you're ready to go, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hey, you're on, buddy.
Okay, good. Perfect. And I've got Ryan Smith here with me. I think Ryan's going to take the first.
Yeah, I'll just do the introduction here if I can, just for a moment before we get started. I did want to say first and foremost to the folks that that joined us on the call yesterday morning, really appreciate your patience and apologies for the technical issues. What a horrific start to a meeting that ended up being, I thought, a really good discussion. But I was reflecting on that last night, shaking my head, thinking, you know, I can't even blame them if the jokes about how many SGI officials it takes to operate a Zoom meeting are already going around, because it wasn't our finest moment, but I do appreciate that. And I hope you folks believe us when I say it is disappointing that our leadership can't be in attendance. You know, we find this to be a valuable event, and we truly enjoy it, to be honest. And it is disappointing not being there. We do have corporate rules. I hope you can appreciate we're doing our part. That said, I think like everyone in the room, we can't wait to get back to what normal used to look like. So hopefully that's sometime soon. And finally, I just wanted to really commend industry on how they've adapted and how they've managed through this pandemic. You know, we've all had to adopt new procedures and really persevere, and it's been quite impressive. And like you had said, Tom, the communication I think has been great. If it wasn't weekly, it was every second week that Ciaran and Tom and Terry and Susan Buckle from SEDA and I would get together. We would talk about issues, and that exchange was really valuable for us to hear the voice, to hear what was happening. It was really those discussions that led to things like the cleaning allowance we implemented, and Ciaran, I'll speak a bit about that shortly. And really that communication has been going on all year. We've seen some really good work at the tech committee. I know things never happen as fast as industry would like, and there's always going to be a list of to-dos, but I really don't want to minimize the work that has been done, and there's been a fair amount of good work this year that Ciaran's going to mention as well. So do appreciate that very much, Tom, as well. So Ciaran's going to get right into the presentation. I think we've done a good job of keeping it pretty tight this year, so we will have time at the end for questions from Harv, hopefully from others as well, and then just some good discussion, hopefully again today too. So.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, by the way, Ryan, we know about what Leonard said about how many SGI guys does it take to change a light bulb, right? You remember that comment?
All right. So, perfect. All right. So I'm going to get into it. I guess I'm going to share my screen here, if I can. All right. So I'll put that over here. And then I'm going to share screen. And I'm going to share, hopefully, this one.
You need jag meat there, buddy.
That's right.
There you go.
You so good? You guys, folks are good?
You got her.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So, okay, well, on to the discussion. So, again, as Ryan had mentioned, we want to take this as an opportunity for us to basically do a little bit of the year in review. And I know we had an opportunity 6 months ago to meet, but lots has gone on, and we're excited to be able to review some of this information with you folks. So I'll get right into it. First thing is as we mentioned, one of the biggest factors or factors that has really been a disruptor for both the insurance industry and the repair industry is COVID. And we'd like to work through with you folks and just review a couple of things that have gone on within SGI, within our province, and some of the things we've worked on together. One of the questions we always get asked is about claims volumes and how has the COVID pandemic affected our claims volume. So interestingly, the way we've been looking at it is we've been looking at it basically if we take a look at the last 3 years, so this is claims intake, this is not repaired claims, this is intake. So this is claims where customers have called in and registered a claim. As you can see, right around that February, March, or actually in around especially March, April, there's been a significant departure. It does follow the same seasonal trends, so that's good. But again, you can see in that March, April, May time period a very significant reduction, and that's where we saw that 30 to 40% reduction in claims come through. But the good news is, as you can see, that it does appear that they're starting to converge again, the two trend lines. So that's some good news for us. Well, bad news for us, good news for you folks, and hopefully those convert into repairs and customers in your facility. So we're excited about that piece in the sense that it hopefully will assist in normalizing the income for some of our repair partners. Couple of things we've done, and I think this highlights some of these efforts. And I guess one of the things I would like to highlight here is that SGI did not think these up themselves. These are in direct response to requests through the technical committee and through those biannual or semi-annual meetings that we had with SATA and SAR. They reached out and told us these are the challenges that they're having, and these are the things that they believe will assist industry in basically navigating this pandemic. So starting in March, we reached out and we're providing a 0.5 per hour claim labor allowance, including body shop supplies. When you take a look at it, just looking at, and this does not include processing TLs, but if you look at actual repairs completed, we've basically supplied, it's actually 1.3 million is conservative. It is more than that, especially when you look at things like shop supplies plus the total losses. But that is where we are to date as of August 2020. That's where we would be. That's about how much we've paid into sanitation allowances. So it's a significant investment, and I hope it demonstrates how our commitment to the safety of both your facilities and our customers. Certification of repairs was another element. We have suspended the requirement to collect a signed COR. Obviously, we still want it a COR attached, but we recognize that there is some challenges in getting the customers into your facilities to do it. So again, some of the elements we've looked at, the important part here though is that these were developed in partnership and coordination with the collision repair industry associations. So your membership dollars at work, and there. So the other piece, the other piece here is this was another element, and actually this was I'll give SGI credit for this one. And one of the things, and again, it's a little bit self-serving too, but we launched a pilot. We call it the COVID efficiency pilot in May. Really, what it was we were looking for an opportunity to reduce the administrative load, especially on shops where a lot of them, the first folks to get furloughed may have been your front end staff, right? And we noticed that we were obviously having challenges too within our groups. And what we were trying to do is where there was an opportunity is to basically go to a shop at the time of image review and say, please provide this information in a subsequent supplement or in mop-up on the claim. So if you're missing photos or if you're missing a receipt, something like that, that was hopefully our opportunity to say, hey, well, let's work together. Please provide, we'll accept this claim. We're not going to slow up the repair. And if you could attach it later. We're only, and this is the concerning bit, we want to continue to work on it, but we're only about 2/3 compliance with that request. So it is something I think we are going to have to work on collectively. And so it's just something I want us to keep in mind. So that's just a little bit. I know those questions came up and there's been a lot of concern generated around that. So around the COVID, we're not through it yet. All of those elements that we just spoke about, as we mentioned, really right now we initially said they're going to stay in effect for 2 weeks after the state of emergency is lifted. We're not through this yet. We're going to continue to provide these services, and I'm interested to know. It's going to be discussions post COVID. What elements of this, are we going to have to, is the way we interact with our customers going to change, and how are we going to have to change some of our admin process to stay abreast of that? And I think those discussions will be happening at that technical committee level. A little bit about the industry updates coming on the next piece. So kind of how we doing collectively. Again, I want to take an opportunity here to sort of, I want to highlight some of the good work that's occurred as a result through the SADSAR Technical Committee, and again in cooperation and in collaboration with the representative directors from each of those organizations. One of the things that's come up and that we'll continue to work on is we have collectively and through discussions, SGI has implemented a rural sublet travel allowance. We formalized that basically just around the beginning of the year. And again, this is to assist those shops where there is a requirement to move a vehicle outside of their community to get some of the work done. So we've had a good bit of luck with that. We're leveraging Google Earth and a couple of these other ones, so we've got consistent, repeatable results. And so that's something that's come out of the committee, the efforts of the committee. One of the things I just want to highlight, we did put a 6.8% material increase in 2020, and I'd like to say that SAR has taken a lead in working directly with the paint companies to help us understand those increases and help us to access the resources needed to make these types of decisions. So your SAR executive were the ones that helped us and provided us the information to basically move ahead with this material increase. Couple of other things, and again, these were kind of beginning of or end of 2019, and really kind of came into their own in 2020, and some of the things we've been working at. We worked directly with the technical committee to work through some of these. But again, since the beginning, your technical committee or your representation has been steadfast in the belief that the pre-scan has a significant role in the diagnostics just as much as the pre, especially when it comes to things like cycle time. There is recognition of that, and we've had an opportunity to move forward and actually basically harmonize the pre and post scan requirements as part of our SQARP efforts. We also, there was also concern with respect to harmonization when we looked at our counterparts in Manitoba and British Columbia and looked around what was going in other areas. We had an opportunity to increase the frame setup time allowance. And so that has come in. There's a 2-hour allowance provided on, especially on those structural repairs. We had a very, very dynamic back and forth on masking. Terry Beattie was the guy who brought it up, and he went through and he masked a door opening, and he came to the technical committee one day and said, "Guys, something's wrong. I can't make this work. I don't see how we can apply the procedure pages in Mitchell to this specific element." And we all told her, "Oh, Terry, go be quiet, go away, it's fine." And then it's like, wait a second, he's right. We had a chance. We brought in our friends from Mitchell. We actually brought in Jerry Gasson, who was a director for their technical and their technical branch of their technical testing, and what are they calling it? Their library. So he basically writes those P pages in his team. And they came in and they gave us a eye-opening demonstration. And so if you guys, when you look at our new masking policy, if you don't like it, it's Mitchell's fault. Because that's how they said the P pages are applied. So we're not fans either, but it is quite because just due to the complexity, which was a little easier way to do it. But yes, when you're masked to protect the interior, that's where it came from. Now again, technical committee efforts, it was significant. As I mentioned, the sanitizing allowance was a direct effort from that committee, and the destructive weld testing that's just come through that we're just starting. We're just kind of opening the book on it. It has come through. One of the things that's interesting, we just met. We had a chance to meet with the your SAR executive just this week, along with we had Mitchell, and we also had the friends from Autohouse come in. And one of the things that they indicated was the prevalence of pre and post scanning compared to the national average. The national average right now is about 50% of claim files. We're up around 70. We are taking a lead in that, and as direct result, we are, I would say, on the leading edge, especially a lot of these new and emerging technologies, and it's a direct result of the efforts of each of the teams within our technical committee. So just wanted to highlight that for the group. I think there's some good news there. Other one then, I just kind of talking, the other element, of course, is process procedure, and then also looking at our scorecard. So this will be probably one of the last times I'll show this scorecard during an AGM, if everything goes to plan. This is our current scorecard, and there is value in it, but I'd like to just sort of bring to your attention a couple of the trends that we're seeing. one of the things quite interesting is parts usage. So when we're taking a look at our current month, and again, kind of looking at current year to date versus previous year to date, when we look at OEM percent and salvage or used part usage, we are, as an industry, doing well. And it was quite interesting. It actually came up, part of the discussion is within nationally and internationally, like within the US and North America, the OE parts access has been a challenge. And one of the things that is quite interesting is the alternative part usage has been increasing as the aftermarket has not been subject to the same pressures. They've obviously had better stock and inventories. So quite interestingly, it is reflected in the amount of actually OEM or new parts purchased directly from the OE or the dealer, and it's reflected in our alternative parts usage. So that's great news, and again, great news on the QRP. The other element that's interesting is our labor percent, which is, again, great news. When we're looking at current month, not necessarily seen so much in the first few months of the pandemic, but certainly right now, and hopefully as a bit of a trail, is the commitment, looking at those repair versus replace decisions, and we are seeing a blip or a bump in that. Other element is kind of, we are continuing to see claims costs increase. When we take a look at basically the first, and this is just to July 31st, the first 7 months of 2020 compared to the first 7 months of 2020 or 2019, we are seeing a bump in our claims severity, and it's one of those things we're going to continue to explore. We do believe, though, a lot of it is surrounding our parts usage decisions. So something we're going to continue to look at. As you can see, reflected the cumulative below that number of repairs completed. There's probably a bit of a backlog, but we're short in around that 5,000 claims. So basically, it's like missing a month of work out of the industry repaired claim count. Other thing to highlight is you can see that the key performance indicators, looking at the total average score, is around 89, which means everybody, with few exceptions, is elite. And it's something that we need to address and want to work towards. One of the things we keep discussing, and you see, is as claims costs rise, we continue to track and look for opportunities in labor hours. 2019, we did see there was an anomaly, especially around 2017, and we believe it had something to do with hail. We want to see ourselves, continue that trend upwards where possible. We're about 17 hours a claim. 17 to 18, industries around 20 to 25, depending where you look. There are lots of elements that will contribute to that. Labor rate's one of them. Repair versus replace decision, the higher labor rate, sometimes depending on the cost of the part, sometimes it's more economical to replace it versus repair. So there are some of those elements that, that are certainly going to put they're going to cap where we believe we should be, but I guess that's something we need to work collectively together on, and maybe, should we be around that 18%? Can we get up to 18 hours, for example? What are our opportunities there? Another interesting slide. Now, I've shown everything that's on here is total year. I've thrown in the 2020 up to July year to date hours. We can't use them because they're not apples to apples. There's some seasonality effects that need to be considered yet. But what's interesting is we are seeing our parts per claim go up. What's interesting, and they do tug against each other, but when we take a look at our R&R times and remove versus replace times, they're not climbing significantly. I'm assuming that a lot of those parts that we're seeing are very, very likely small clips, like clips, and smaller parts that are probably not very, very time intensive, but are still adding cost to the repair. So we always like to talk about how many parts are in a bumper today than there versus a bumper 10 years ago. Well, we are seeing that climb, and we are continuing to see those opportunities for repair decline. It's even over the last 2 to 3 years, we've continued to see it. Even with no change in labor rate, specifically over those 3-year period, we're still seeing it drop. And we are, however, so far year to date, we're around 2 hours, which is not bad. And hopefully we can keep that trend up moving forward. One of the other things that's come up, and it's quite an interesting discussion, is total losses. And we do track it. We do keep a finger, our finger on the pulse. And one of the elements that comes up is, discussions around, over the last, especially around COVID, what have we seen a change in our total loss behavior, especially with shops taking on a lot more estimates. And again, thank you for that. A lot of customers have elected, instead of waiting, to take their vehicles to your facilities to get their estimates done. You guys have opened your doors up to, and we have seen the number of TLs processed at the shop level go up. But one of the things we haven't seen is we're still holding reasonably steady with that TL percent around 22, which is good. I think it's holding the trend over the last 3 years. So it is a good indication that a lot of those decisions are being made consistently. And that said, it is one of those things we'd like to continue to work on. And obviously, the lower our TL percent, the better off we all are. The more repairs we complete, the better off we are. So one thing to keep in mind. Other element then too is used parts. And again, as I mentioned, it's going to continue to be a very, very consistent or a very important element to our ongoing well-being. We have turned the corner. 2018, we were at our kind of all-time low. We have turned around and we've got it up to, from 3.6 all the way up to 4.3 on an average in 2019. And so far, year to date, we're 4.6. So we are still pushing the envelope. And again, it's just very, very much a success for us collectively. And again, a lot of thanks goes to the folks out in the repair industry who are making those decisions, making those calls to salvage, and helping us to continue to utilize those used parts and control costs. Next element, a little bit about Medallia. Right now, I've got about 74, 76 shops participating in Medallia. It's about 31% of our shop mix, where we're kind of hoping the mix would be. I think one of the things that's incredible is look at that Net Promoter Score. There's no other word for it. It's kick ass. It is right up there. It is in the excellent category. So, on average, and I'm just in general, it's around that 70 to 75% seems to be the industry average. Of those 76 shops, you guys are industry leading. The other thing that's very, very interesting about this is that our response rate on this is, I wish I was there because I could go, hey, does anyone want to take a guess at the response rate? How many people are doing it? 42.6% of people are responding to this survey. For every 10 people, almost half, every time you send out a survey, almost, let's say for every 2 people, just about every second person is responding to it. That's an incredible response rate. And I don't know what you guys are doing, and I'd love to know how you're doing that, because in general, especially with emails, responses or email surveys, in general, the response rates around, in fact, kind of like top of class is usually around that 11 to 12% is how it's been explained to me. So it's incredible. Very, very good responses. We got lots to learn here, and if there's other folks from industry that are out there, I would like to I'd like to explore this collectively with our teams and really understand what shops are saying, how are they promoting this to their customers, because whatever you're doing, it's working, and you're creating an excellent customer experience for that group. Again, just kind of getting back to sort of thinking about where we would like to kind of continue our efforts. We are seeing our parts climb faster than our labor, and again, we haven't seen a necessarily labor increase in the since 2017 was the last point, and obviously we are continuing. Labor is still going up. Our costs are going up. There is more R&I and there is more R&R. That said, actually more R&I, not R&R. I think we've proved that the R&R hasn't moved, but what we are seeing is those parts, it's outpacing it significantly. And one of the interesting things is, for the first time really ever in 2019, we saw our parts kind of eclipse our labor percent. and that trend's continuing into now. Again, we had some brand new data, so we threw it in here. This is SGI credit shops. This is it's unfiltered, which means if you guys are fixing RV, it's in here too, or heavy truck. But if you are accredited, this data is showing in here. But it does continue to show that trend, and I think it is one of those elements that I think we want to continue to work at. I honestly am surprised. I always thought, and I'd like to understand why we're not seeing the sublet category grow at the same rate. That's where we thought we would see a lot more of things such as calibrations, outsourcing calibrations, some of those elements. Maybe there's a lot of work being done, with the internal shops and internal measures of people making investment in those tools necessary. The other element that we can expect to see, of course, is the other category, and in there is things like paint materials and shop materials. So those, we expect those to see those to grow at a certain rate in comparison to the total spend. But yeah, that sublet, surprisingly, it should be growing quicker than it is, and I think it's something that we would like to understand. I wonder what we're not doing, because there's so much technology that's coming out there that we'd expect to see a growth in that piece. Again, just don't want to beat it over the head too much, but really concentrating on that parts spend, looking for those opportunity. 2% of the claim per claim, 2% of those costs are going to use parts, 10% to OE, and 31 to 31 of the overall spend is going to OE. So basically 33 cents of every dollar we spend on our claim, we're buying an OE part with. And so, it's a third of the claim cost. So what are some of our opportunities there to sort of kick into there, and what can we do to transition more of that back to labor? Some of the high profit, high margin work for the shops, and also activities that tend to help us control our severity. So that's a little bit of a 30,000 foot state of the nation, what's going on. Hopefully this is the part that you all came for. One of the things we've been doing is we have had an opportunity to connect, and we are working through this. These are this right now is a little bit of our, we want to review some proposals. And, we're working towards gaining alignment on these. We've got a proposed model, and we've been working with our technical committee and having off-site meetings, or sort of not off-site, but individual kind of working group meetings to discuss this and gain some feedback and some understanding. And so now's our opportunity to, almost for the first time, really, yes, we have distributed some of these slides, so you will have seen it has. We distributed the minutes of our technical committee. Now I have an opportunity to really get in front of some folks and have another conversation about it. So we're quite excited. But a little bit about readiness and kind of where are we as an industry, and are we ready to take those next steps? First thing we want to talk about here is our minimum training and tooling incentive. As I mentioned before, this is a gimme. If I haven't cut you a check for $6,000 by March 1st, you're not accredited. This basically says if you meet the accreditation requirements, we will give you money. $6,000 to meet the minimum training tooling incentive. It is very low. Now, just so you know, where do we come up with these percents? We went through and we basically looked at our total revenue or spend for each of these shops and claims. And we looked at industry-wide, and we said, okay, who's likely to be OE certified and who's likely not to be? And so if you're not going to necessarily be OE certified, what portion of the team is that? And that's kind of where the 100% of. So really, from our estimate anyway, those are likely not to be OE certified, and probably, and in all fairness, it's not a bad thing. It just means this is, based on the size of your facility, here's likely where your vehicle makes. You're probably not going to make that investment. It doesn't make sense to you right now. This is probably where you'll sit in. Only 8% of facilities have there. So I just let you guys know, it's around 19 shops have actually made application for it. This means that they have their ICAR Gold class. They've got the tooling requirements, and they've got so they got the 3 welder. They've got the squeeze sergeant spot welder and the make brazing capabilities, essentially. We recognize that the ICAR continues to be a challenge for folks. Right now, luckily we had a chance to connect with ICAR, and about 150 shops have been into the training over the last 7 months. So since December, there's been about 150 shops have accessed the portal, which is good news. And I'm hoping that we get a rush of applications for the $6,000 over the next little while as folks kind of bring in that last piece of the puzzle and have their training completed. In retrospect, and again, you know, and again, this number is a little inflated, but you know, we are, again, who do we think would be OE certified? And you know, when we looked at it, again, this is based on about 100 shops. There's actually 22 shops that actually have made this application for the $15,000. That said, I'm not sure it's going to get too much bigger. I think it's probably going to top out around 32%, which is fine initially. But again, there's more people that have made applications for the 15 than there is for the 6. So there's more people that meet the OE certification requirements than meet the minimum tooling and training as of right now. So again, it's a big challenge for us. We are going to be keeping an eye on this. And if I haven't, all I can say is, if you do not have a check in your hand for $6,000 or 15, there's trouble, and we need to be working at that. So we're working towards that. So you know, that May 1st deadline is continuing to come through, and I think it's one of the things that we want to continue to work towards collectively. OEM procedure subscription. So again, about 72% of shops have actually made application for it. There's a significant number that haven't. You know, we've been working with them and following up, especially through our shop relations folks. A lot of folks they don't have a high volume. They're accessing them through the dealer or buying the kind of the 24-hour subscription where needed, which is interesting. But it's in this case, this was essentially was meant to provide shops access to this application at SGI's cost for the purposes of getting you guys acquainted with it, acquainted with OE procedures, and helping you folks kind of move through and understand the importance of them. This ends December 2020, just as a note. So, you know, we got 2.5 months left, 3 months left, 3.5 months left of it. Again, it's something we're going to continue to discuss, but right now, that was what was discussed a year and a half ago. And so again, I'm not gonna lie, the uptake was concerning, and I'm wondering, you know, if there's that 28%, what does that indicate for the shops in that piece? Are they, you know, we're trying to ask this question, we're out working with the shop relations folks to understand, you know, and lots of folks are getting this question: what's your plan? What do you think is going to happen in March? What's your business plan model moving forward? And you know, we're getting a variety of answers. We're just hoping that we get a lot of yeses. We are in, and we are interested in continuing to partner with SGI. We need it. Just a little something that kind of came up, and this has been shared actually, you know, with Rate Review Committee and a couple of other folks. I think it's important that we, you know, transparency, we kind of indicate what we've been discussing. We looked at some projected payouts, and again, this is not what we have paid out. It's what we've set aside for the purposes of a potential payout. You know, when we look at our frame setup times, our pre-scans, the OEM procedures, the training tool incentives, we're in about that 7.4 million, 7.5 million. And again, when you take a look at it based on, let's say, a 43% labor percent, which we're actually a little bit below, would be around a 5.2% rate increase. And of course, Medallia, we're offering it for free, which is again another great program that can help and assist shops in meeting their customer service targets and obviously contributing bottom line. One of the things that's kind of interesting, we talked about that pre-scan, and we're only about 70% of claims. You know, so you think about that. If you, from that perspective, there's almost $1.7 million of unrealized opportunity, at least revenue around pre-scans. So I think we have a lot of, I think there's still more work to do there, especially around some of the shops. And there's some shops that are great at it. Looking at the project update and kind of where are we trending towards, and kind of what's our goal. We broke the SQARP website up into about 4 pieces or 4 chunks. One of the main elements that we're looking at is the customer and partner communication and change management. So we are looking at SGI public website content. helping kind of with a goal of informed customer choice, especially around safe quality repair. We're looking at our first notice of loss or claims intake process, and looking at what technologies can we leverage there to assist ensuring that the claims get to the shops that have the training tools and equipment necessary to fix the type of repair necessary to damage. We're also looking at our corporate branding. Right now, as we mentioned, we are looking at a program to move away from basically our tiered levels. And it is something that, be confident, we're still working on it. There will be a lot of effort put into ensuring that it is it's least disruptive and it doesn't interfere with your shop operations to the extent we can make that happen. So two things are important here. First thing is the value of what contributes to it. And let's be honest, guys, right now from a corporate perspective, the way people search for shops is electronically, usually online. They usually don't drive around the city kind of looking trying to make a decision that way. We're hoping that we with that in mind, we can leverage a strategy moving forward that is as least disruptive to the shops as possible. So it's something that we're keeping in mind. Next piece to it is obviously the accreditation itself. This is where minimum training tooling and equipment comes into it. This is where we talk about performance management, reporting, KPI models, and shop excellence programs. This is what we want to talk about for the remainder of my presentation today. But we haven't lost sight of some of those other elements. Our total loss handling processes. So our provincial rebuilt total loss programs, our salvage whole vehicle sales, and retained TLs. There's two elements there that come up to it. And obviously what we want to do is we want to make sure we're putting a pile of diligence into making sure that claims are repaired properly. But SGI also runs that executive government program for the provincial government, which is the body integrity inspection process and the vehicle inspection program. And of course, the same effort, the same diligence, tools, equipment, training required to repair a claim are exactly the same for a vehicle that is bought through salvage or a customer retains as part of a total loss or as part of a retained total loss as part of a claim settlement. So we are working with vehicle standards and inspection to make sure it's happening, and the steps have already gone out. There's been a lot of communication with the body integrity partners around that, and we are looking to ways to ensure, for example, put a little more rigor around ensuring that to ensure or reduce incidents where customers may shop around and find one partner may have a little more rigor than another one. Well, it should be consistent, right? You should be able to go to one inspection facility and have the same expectation of what passes and what fails. So some of those things we're working with them on. The other thing that we're quite excited about, and this is really that we're looking at process and policy, but we also need to look at the technologies behind it. And this is where some real efficiencies can come up. And it's like Dave Flogard just mentioned, and looking at the body shop management systems, you need data to make those business decisions. One of the ways that we're looking at it is, looking at going to market again for an estimating or evaluation, an estimating and vehicle valuation, so a total loss value program, and applications through an RFP process. And that would include a vendor management process. And again, how does that tie in? Well, it really comes down to helping us identify what shops have the training tooling necessary to repair certain types of claims. We're looking at there's strong integrations for OE collision repair software into the estimating platforms. There's some fantastic stuff out there where basically you write an estimate and it's pulling the OE procedures as line items at a line level as you write it, reducing the necessity for folks like Shane at PAR to go home with big manuals and read all night instead of go and play ball with his kids. I think it's what Tom has told us about the folks at SAR. They're car repair nerds, and there's guys that are taking this stuff home and working diligently to understand the repair procedures. Hopefully this will remove at least the searching. You still got to read it, but at least it's in your hands as you write the estimate. We're also looking at our road hazard glass application, maybe going to market on it, seeing what we can do. Road hazard glass, there's always procedures associated with that, just the same as there is for anything else. All of the ADAS, most of the ADAS equipment is assigned behind the windshield, and that is where that equipment rests and requires calibration. And of course, our assignment enhancements. One of the things we are looking at is customer guided photo-based estimating moving forward. I already know that there are partners who've taken a lead on that within Saskatchewan and are utilizing that technology already. and we don't want them to have all the glory. So we need to make sure that we're taking a lead in that as well, and working with those shops to learn from them. Okay, so if you've read the minutes from the technical committee at any time, you've seen this before. This really is kind of talking all about the accreditation model, and kind of high level 30,000 foot. Well, there's 4 pieces to it, and it's relatively simple. The first one is a master services agreement. This is the accreditation agreement. This lists roles, responsibilities, who's responsible for what commitments are being made to each of the parties. In this agreement houses the things like minimum tools and equipment requirements. It lists things like minimum training. It lists the performance metrics KPI, and of course the performance management process. It outlines it. If both parties agree to it, we now have a relationship, SGI accredited repair relationship. So you're not elite standard select, you have this opportunity to kind of be an accredited collision repair facility. Once you're in that facility, this is where the departure occurs. Once we're inside in that agreement from our old program. Our current program, we have KPIs. Couple things about the KPIs we have is they're all financial, essentially financial productivity related. They don't necessarily key on some of the other important elements of the repair. And those include customer experience and obviously repair quality. The new model is going to bring those into account. The old model also basically creates a cumulative score. So if you, as we mentioned before, you can do very well in one KPI and then do very poorly in another one, yet still have a good score. You can offset behavior in one through behavior in another one. We recognize that there's a little bit of a risk there. And one of the things we talk about essentially is that there is, all of them are important. That's why they're called key performance indicators. In the new model, we're looking towards a model where every KPI essentially carries the same weight. And we are looked at, and when we looked at it, when we're trying to develop, well, what are these KPIs? What are these core elements of shop performance? And what are, what are they as we kind of work through it? And first things we identified is obviously financial and productivity are important. If your cycle time really is the central hub of any shop. And especially, when we see things occurring, and again, yes, it's more prevalent outside the province where there has been significant consolidation, where facilities have grown in size. The more work in progress you have, the more opportunity you've got to do that, the more important that cycle time or touch time KPI comes into effect. And that moving forward will continue to grow in importance for any collision repair partner that we work with. It is the hub, it is the key from it. So one of the things we found about cycle time is it actually affects all the other KPIs. They're interrelated with it. So thinking of it like a wheel with touch time at the center, when I look at average repair hours, which essentially is another word for repair versus replace decision. When I look at my aftermarket parts and salvage departments, which essentially is the alternative parts usage, they all can affect the cycle time, and the cycle time can affect them. And when we look at it right now, as we mentioned, parts are a growing concern, and they continue to be, and they are what they are, but we have to continue to look for options to make the most economical parts decision. For that, we have picked up 3 areas that we want to key on. Repair versus replace decisions, which is reflected in your average repair hours. And that doesn't include R&R and R&I. That is simply time spent on repair, which right now is about 2 per claim out of a 17-hour claim. Aftermarket parts, so right now we're looking at an OEM. Right now we measure what we call OEM percent. I think it's a misnomer. What I think is more important is OEM percent is what OEM percent is. What is more important is what are the things that are driving it. So we flipped it around and we looked at there's 2 key elements in Saskatchewan, and it's your aftermarket parts usage and it's salvage parts. And so that's one of the other elements that we looked at. Going to the other side, we look at compliance and repair quality. And of course, which of course is essentially compliance with SGI policy procedure. What is the quality? Obviously repair quality, but inside of that is looking at it, compliance with OEM procedures. Are we looking at, are we making those structural repairs effectively? Are they safe quality auto repair? And then finally, the one thing that we're not looking at, and we need to be looking at more overall in our entire industry, is the customer experience, which is one of the foundations. So that's really looking at that balanced scorecard approach. And it is a balanced scorecard. It's not just a technical scorecard or productivity scorecard or financial scorecard. It's looking at the entire experience. And again, these have come up through discussions it's through research, development, discussions with our various partners, both inside and outside Saskatchewan. And again, you know, it's in developmental. We're interested in feedback. We are meeting specifically with our industry associations to continue to learn and understand, are we looking at the right things? And is there value for both parties in looking at this? So once you've got that KPI piece and looking at those KPIs, as I mentioned, they're all important. So the idea is to create a benchmark. So minimum level performance in each of those areas. And it's something that, you know, the one way we're going to have to do that is we need data to do that. And we need to be able to get these scores out into industry and basically work with industry to understand them. If you, for example, were to drop below a minimum acceptable KPI threshold, right? And in that case, right now, we want to take it to the next step a little bit, and we want to talk about performance management, and I'm going to talk about that a little more in an additional slide. And then we'll have a performance management plan and working with shops to help. Basically, really, what we want to do is we want to leverage. It's really about advising, coaching, and where we can mentor and creating those opportunities for shops to basically solve their own problems and work through various training opportunities to really fix the problem. And that's one of the things that I'll highlight. The other thing that's very important, and this actually came up during our discussions with Minister Hargrave in 2019, was really around creating these opportunities for shops that are high performers to basically provide benefit to them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment too. So I'm going to pop in here for a minute quickly, and I think I've gone over the KPI model in quite a bit of detail, but again, just to highlight, you know, the idea of it is that we really are interested in creating that an approach where everyone is truly a key indicator. And one of the important things we're trying to do is make sure that they are something called lead indicators. They're indicative of performance. We are not scoring shops on severity. Severity is a lag indicator. Severity is a product of these types of behaviors. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to key on those behaviors that up front are going to create those types of profitability and safe quality behaviors that we're targeting. As I mentioned, Net Promoter Score, customer experience is being key to that. The way to do that is to, right now, universally across Canada and North America, NPS is what is measured. And essentially, it really is, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but it's a measure of, you know, honestly, it's a measure of communication. Did we keep the shop and the customer updated throughout the repair process? Timeliness. Was the estimate started, scheduled, and completed when promised? And the quality. Was the customer satisfied with the finish of the repair when it's done? It's really keying on those three elements. As I mentioned, the shops we have in it right now are kicking butt. We need and are going to be making requests to move forward with basically working to get the NPS rolled out to every shop in the network as part of the rollout in March. And again, it's something that we want to work with. We want to, you know, we are the only insurer in Canada and that right now that is not tracking this at a shop level. One of the things though that we do understand is we don't want to create administrative load on shops. So right now, the beauty of Medallia is it has a feedback model in it, and it basically tells a shop if a customer is upset and gives them that opportunity to turn that frown upside down and get in front of that customer and make it right. That said, it does create a workflow to do that, so you can track it. You know, that is something that we understand could be a challenge for a lot of shops, so it's something that we need to take away. Is there a way we can do this without creating admin load for shops? And those shops that want the close feedback, give it to them. Those are honestly the ones that are going to be successful, because that you need to manage that relationship. I know there's shops out there that have almost 90% of their time is with it. They've got it. There's a phone app on here, that Medallia, that comes with it, and basically, you know, I've been I've met shops at Costco, folks from shops at Costco, and next thing you know, they're on their phone managing, returning a request from a customer or dealing with a customer concern. So I know it's a lot of work, and but again, it's those that are committed to doing it. They will see benefit to it. The repair quality or compliance, again, it's compliance with OE procedure. It's really looking at, you know, customer concerns, those types of things. One of the things that we want to do, and the way that we intend to do this, is we're likely going to be looking at it more of a traffic light, meaning that green means you're good, yellow means there's some activity, red means we have a problem. And you know, it is set, and one of the things that we want to work with, and the way that we can gain insights into this, is leveraging the results of our audits and in-progress inspections and shop visits. And one of the way that we want to basically handle this is, in every scorecard that a shop gets every month, our intent is to list every file where there's been, and if there's any activity related to that, basically over the last 12 months. And if there's audit results, if there's a recovery, if there's a concern or a problem with a file, you know, if we've asked someone to basically add in an invoice or provide photos and they don't, those types of things could be triggered on a per file basis. And essentially looking at, and one of the things that we want to look at is, okay, there's always going to be something, right? No one's perfect. There's always going to be a situation where there's an administrative mistake or whatever. That's not the intent of this. The question is at what point is it too much? You know, and I think that's something we want to, you know, I think we want to work closely with with technical committee and those kind of groups to understand, you know, is it, the other thing is that if you're a very high volume shop, you're probably going to end up having more inquiries from image and show up on audits by virtue of just having more files than a small volume shop. So how do we take, you know, bring that into consideration? And, you know, there are going to be instances where automatically you're going to go from green to red. Okay, it's going to happen. One of the quickest ways to do it is for a repair that's not done in accordance with the OE procedures. It's an unsafe repair, potentially unsafe repair. That'd be a great way to get in there. That said, are there mitigating circumstances? Are there things that can maybe help us review that? For sure there is. And again, those are the things that we want to continue to develop and understand. But this is from SQARP, and this is one of the most powerful measures that we've got. And we want to get it right. And so this is one of the pieces that we want to continue to work with. And then, of course, the next thing is that, you know, after what period of time, everybody gets to get out of jail at some point. And so when does it age off? When do we, at what point is a transgression, you know, saying that happened a long time ago, leave them alone. And so, you know, it happens with everybody. So those are the things that we want to talk about. And right now, you know, we're looking at a 12-month basis. Maybe there's some opportunity there. So we're in development of that. Of course, touch time. I'm going to put the word touch in there from now on. I have been you know, indirectly scolded multiple times over the last few days for using the word cycle and creating confusion. And there's been some experts in the industry that have shaken their head. They've given us kudos for using the right measure, but then told us that we're bad for giving it the wrong name. So we're going to fix that. And you know, we want to continue to work with cycle time. One of the things we're talking about and looking at is we're hoping to move towards another system, like, you know, within Mitchell, for example, there's a cloud-based estimating platform. It's got a new way of tracking cycle time that actually integrates directly with for example, a shop management system. You know, Auditex has also got new and innovative ways that we could look at tracking cycle time. So this is not off the radar. You know, how can we do a better job, more consistent in making sure that we're getting a good measurement? So, so it is one of the things that we want to continue to look at. And as I said, it is really the center or hub of the whole KPI model. Repair labor, not spend too much time on this. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it is looking at, you know, it really is about replacing versus, it's repair versus replace discussion. And it gives us insights into that behavior. I'm okay, I'm almost done. if anybody's getting concerned, I will accelerate to the next little pieces. The next piece, though, is with the aftermarket usage API. Again, it's sort of turning it on its head, looking specifically at aftermarket part usage, and again, continuing where there is price matching to look at price matching as a valid alternative to using an aftermarket part. The one big change, though, is really around salvage. And we want to, we own a salvage division. We want to promote it. One of the things that we want to make sure that we continue to work with on the KPI, or the recycle part KPI, is looking at what is the actual salvage usage, and really how can we drive focus? How can we ensure that we've got that we are utilizing the most economical part, and it's really benefiting us from a salvage side as well, or other salvage divisions. It's an ecosystem, and regardless of what salvage operator provides that parts, I know that a lot of it is really coming from our whole vehicle sales on our salvage side, and so it's a great opportunity for us to have some symbiosis with the other, with the competitive recyclers out there. So one of the pieces we really will be looking is targeting actual salvage part uses, not necessarily where maybe there was a price matching situation. And we're not going to take away people's opportunity to price matching. Absolutely, it's just looking for those opportunities to measure really what are we actually using. This is just a draft of a scorecard looking at it, and I think one of the things that's important to kind of highlight here, and the piece that I think is important is right here, I want this to work, is this benchmark. It is not working, there you go. This benchmarking piece here. And of course, this is where we'll be looking and saying, and again, don't ignore these, they're just for fun. But looking at a benchmark of what is the minimum acceptable performance. If you drop below that, then we move you into, for example, moving on to the next piece, which would be the performance management piece. Sorry, coming back. And then, as we mentioned, and looking at the recycled parts and our aftermarket parts usage, again, we really need to continue to develop processes for working through this. For example, our efforts with CarPart and working closely with Tom Julius and his group, looking for those opportunities to get more of those salvage parts on the claims when we're writing the claim at first, and looking and basically, what are our opportunities to increase our inventories, our online inventories, and where that's not possible, what are some other options? And one of, like, working with Tom, for example, to do things like instant messaging with salvage divisions and other salvage partners. So those are the types of things we want to continue to look at. So I'm assuming that all of you guys have seen this before. If you haven't read the current 2017 SATA SAR SGI accreditation agreement. Right now, today, this is essentially what's laid out, and it's your five strikes you're out rule. And essentially what it is looking for, guidance at the event of an issue is identified. At what point have we provided guidance, direction, and support? There comes a point then where, if it continues at some point, can we come to a cooperative solution where we actually have to take some substantive action to fix it through an advisory letter? And then finally is your 3 strikes. So basically it's 3 strikes to get in trouble, and then 3 strikes and you're out. So then it comes into the default letter, and it's escalating levels of default and potential associated fines or whatever those may be at this point to getting out. We still believe that is a good model. One of the things, though, it hasn't been applied consistently, and it's one of the things we've spent a lot of time on KPIs and developing and reporting. Now it's time for us to really take a look at the process and how do we want to hold shops to account and hold ourselves to account to ensure that we're actually moving the needle on that. So really, we're looking at performance management from 3 perspectives. And you've heard this a lot, and I'm stealing from a lot of people, but performance is a 3-legged stool. We've heard this, whether we look at things like internally when we're looking at staff performance, when you're working with your staff, what are you guys looking at? You're looking at technical competency, you're looking at their behavior, are they showing up? Right? And so from a shop's perspective, And as we mentioned, and through our research, there's really 3 pillars or elements that are indicative of successful shop performance. One of them is the quality of your repair, and underlying that is the safety around it. The next one's customer experience. If you're not managing a customer experience, you have no one's cars to fix. And the next piece, of course, is financial risks and of dealing with the financial and productivity elements there. So those are the interesting pieces. We believe if you fall off at any of those, that's where the performance management piece kicks in. Well, if you can look at it, our KPIs are developed on those 3 areas. So that's why they're all important. And if you fall below the minimum threshold of 1, this is where we want to work with you. And we're looking at that 3-step process, creating that advisory, coaching elements. If there is a plan and there is an issue, step 2, let's do a formal coaching plan. Let's work with the shop to basically solve the issue. And finally would be default or corrective actions up to including removal from the program. So really, one of the things that we've looked at here is creating what we're calling a performance management plan or a performance improvement plan, working directly with the shops. And what we want to do is if we work with a shop, we're going to have identified under technical capacity, experience, financial productivity, looking for those specific issues that are coming up and that are driving the score down, and creating an action plan and some responsibility and some actual timelines against it. That action plan is written by the shop, not by SGI. We do not have access or insights into how you manage and run your facility. And I'm going to be honest, 90% of shop issues are management related. And what I mean by that is it's the technicians themselves are doing what they're told. You've got some great techs. A lot of the time it seems to be how the shop's managed. And the biggest gaps are in 2 areas: standard operating procedures and quality control and quality assurance. Those really, and that's just from our experience and working with shops right now. So that tends to be those areas where we can really work with a shop. And that's where we can do things like an action plan. Could be training. It could be developing standard operating procedures if you don't have any, or creating a QA/QC plan, a quality assurance and control, and providing us indication of who's responsible for and what dates, and following up on it. And yes, if they fall away on these, then that's where we'd likely move to the next step. But again, it's being more proactive and working directly with the shop. We want them to be successful. How can we help folks to get there? The next piece, as I mentioned, is this is really one of our biggest elements of the new program, and it's very, very important to us. As I mentioned, it came directly from our owners and government, and it really tends to work to address some of the concerns that have come out of industry. And really, what it is a high performance partner program. We've heard this message a lot, especially from SAR. There are shops that do a very good job repairing vehicles, and they do maintain good scores in certain indicators. So from our perspective, what we're worried about are some of the things that we want to ensure that we're working on is how can we create opportunities to reward those good high performers. Now, one of the things that we're starting with is our ask first replace, our ask first accept, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. But essentially what we're doing is it's behavior at image, and it's looking at things like supplement frequency and dollars at risk. And I'll show you how you're going to measure that. But now that said, this is something that can be evolved. And if there is, depending on what goes on, let's say we end up with things like maybe we want to start looking at parts as a future high performance element, right? Parts, cycle time, whatever it is, we have options. But the point is, this establishes a program and helps us build it. So from our perspective, if you're a shop moving forward and you're performing well in this ask versus accept concept, low supplement frequency, and I'll explain supplement frequency. And supplement frequency is not what you think it is. It's not estimate supplement. It's supplement request from image and dollars at risk. What can we do? Well, we can do things like assist you in bypassing image. And I don't mean going, hey, good job, now you're elite, we'll give you $1,000 more auto accept than a standard shop or select. We're talking big dollars, like maybe 20 grand, 15 grand, whatever the right number is, and giving us an opportunity to really get out of your way and allow you to really ping on those cycle time elements. Other things, how about high visibility in the shop locator? When we do sorting, if you're doing well, you should be, and a customer goes into our online shop locator, you show up first. Other future options, like we discussed, if we're looking at things like parts, parts autonomy, if they were indicating certain behaviors and allowing the shops to make the decisions on their own, other elements like that. So this is an exciting one. This is the one where we continue to grow and really address some of those concerns from industry. But to start with, from a high performance partner program, right now, you've heard about we're annotating estimates, and you guys are getting back these redlined estimate versions. And really what it does, it gives us an opportunity to look at the performance in the shop. So just to give you an idea, looking at basically the year to date, so this would be into August 2020, and for Saskatchewan, there's been 16,000 estimates that have come through, specific individual estimates, right? We are tracking about 40% of claims going through image, which makes sense, out of about 40,000 estimates completed. And then, of course, the number of estimates that were actually changed, 42% of those that came through image had a change to them. Of those, we identified $5.4 million in risk. Significant amount at time of image, and these would have been. So what happens at image is that we will go through and we will request a supplement. This isn't you folks creating a supplement, but it's where we will go and we will essentially go, we can't accept the submission in its current form. We'd like to work with you folks to basically determine what is that issue, and send it back and get you folks to basically edit the submission and then send it back with the correction made. This is that opportunity where we talked about where we weren't asking for a supplement as part of COVID. And so not everyone has dollars associated with it. Some of it's just plain old, hey, there's no photos. So for example, if you submit a part and there's no photos, we don't take the part off the estimate and give you a dollar value. No, what we do is we request a supplement to add those photos. So that's where the frequency comes into place. So if you forget to add photos, yes, it can result in a higher supplement frequency. Now, if you come back and say, oh, I don't have any photos, or yeah, I guess that's the wrong part, and we have to pull the part off, that's where the dollars would come in. And we're being very careful around that to make sure we're being fair and consistent. We've been spending probably the last 6 to 8 months developing process to ensure that. And it gives a chance to identify where some of those opportunities lie. And a lot of it's repair versus replace decisions. And it's one of those things we want to continue to work with. But to give you an idea on the next slide, we take a look at what is some of the highest frequency requests when we do ask, and it continues to be missing photos. And they're not all related to labor decisions. A lot of them, there's a catch-all, which is that undefined, and it really is in there. If we could work on that photo documentation supporting a request, it would really take a lot of load off. It should be a lot less supplements and allow us to use our resources to really talk about the important stuff, like repair versus replace decisions, and get into the weeds on those elements. So kind of just looking at sort of next steps and what is the plan. These are just some highlighted dates I just want to talk to you folks about. I just want to bring everyone's attention. We're updating the master services agreement. The last one was 2017. We're going to be, adding in tooling requirements, adding in, versions of our key performance indicators that are important we want to track. We want to send it out and give everyone a couple of months to get back to us when it's signed. You got to sign it. You got to say yes, and this of course, this MSA, we are going to be taking the version and running it through the executives to make sure that there's alignment with SAR on it. But our plan is to get it out December if we can, and of course, the OEM procedure incentive program ends December 31st, and that should be 2020, not 2021. Sorry about that. I'll change that. The next port, of course, is in January. We're hopefully getting to a point where we can start to share it. It'll actually probably be February because we won't even have January data. But looking at making plans for us to start sharing the new balance scorecard, establishing some baseline measures and really we want to get whatever we do with our cards, we can't start enforcing it, for lack of a better word. We got to get it in the hands of the shops, allow them to start working with it, and adjust to the new model. So it could be up to 12 months before we're really in a position to really kind of kick in on some of the performance elements. But it doesn't, over that process, that doesn't mean we're not coaching, mentoring, and working with shops along the way. It just means maybe we're not writing default letters immediately. Of course, go live is March 1st. minimum training tool and equipment requirements come into effect. We want to formalize the shop development and support programs, and hopefully roll out changes to the Medallia shop NPS application and onboard more of our shop partners. And of course, ongoing in the future, this is the important bit that I feel, is our plan is to take an iterative approach to test and learn. Essentially, we want to implement. Does it work? If it doesn't, make the changes and implement again, ongoing with our KPI mix. There'll be formal annual KPI reviews through our data partners or internally, allowing us to adjust the changes in strategic direction and of course changes in industry. And with that, also address things like opportunities where things like a high performance shop program and those elements. So before I sign off, and I know one of the questions going to come up right away is, and I thought I just might as well address it right now, is what's the plan with March? And is there, are we looking at extending the deadline right now? Right now, we're not. We're not contemplating it. However, we are ensuring that we're reaching out to the partners to understand where everybody is in the process. And I just want to take this opportunity to highlight and blow our own horn a little bit. But we've been working pretty hard, meeting almost monthly with ICAR and some of the trainers around the province, and of course SIA and Polytech. Is right now we committed to. Remember, there was a giant fake check. Where is that check? Because I want it. But is Auditex give our minister a giant fake check, which was then turned around, and we committed to using it to bring the training to the shops. So the couple of elements, the three classes that are out there, non-structural steel welding, MIG brazing, and steel sectioning, are in-person classes. Unfortunately, they can't bring the squeeze type spot welding because the machines are too expensive and too big, but we certainly have worked with them to bring the non-structural steel welding to three great shops around the province that have had opportunity to kind of reach out with us. Twisted Metal in Tisdale from September 19th to 20th, New Line in Meadow Lake from 26th to 27th, and Cypress Motors in Swift from October 24th to 25th. We are looking for another partner in the Estevan Weyburn region. Hopefully we can get someone out there. I think some of these have filled up already. If not, it's worth a call to ICAR if this is something. It saves you the trip, the hotel, and it certainly helps us to bring it closer to the shops. And with that, I'm going to kind of open the floor up and look at that. Yeah, Tom, I did okay. It's 20 minutes.
You did good. Thanks, Ciaran. That's awesome. I did have one question on the chat line or comment, if you don't mind me sharing it with you. It's basically suggesting when you're talking about cycle time, and we discussed that earlier this week with Mike from Autohouse and the people from Mitchell. We feel that's touch time, you call it. Cycle time, we call it, is the most important measurement that we have. That really dictates how much money we can save you and how much more money we can make if we get the cars in and out quicker. The problem they're running into is that the adjusters at SGI are still coaching people to bring the car in on Monday, not to bring it in on Thursday or Friday. And the reality is, and we've had this discussion at your level on a number of occasions, is that in order for a shop to have a nice consistent workflow, they basically need to be booking jobs every day. So if you could somehow or another pass it on to the people on that side of the equation to, just let the shops book these cars every day. And you know what, if our cycle time gets out of whack, then give us a slap on the head. But by bringing everything in on Monday and trying to get it on Friday, you're just creating bottlenecks and confusion for shops. Does that make sense?
It does. And the reason they do it is to try to avoid the weekend. We don't want to pay rent all over the weekend, right? And that's what it is. That said, it's let's take this back. And I think we may need to escalate this and have a deeper discussion. I think it deserves more discussion than just hey guys, I heard this. I'd like to, sort of escalate within our own group to probably circle back with you folks for a little bit of more in-depth discussion on it.
And I know that in many cases that we want to try to avoid the weekends, but when we have a larger job that's maybe got, let's say it's got 40 hours on it, it's going to be over a weekend no matter what. So if we could get it in on Thursday and get it apart and get the proper supplements done, we could probably finish it before the following weekend. But to try and get it all done, you're going to blow possibly 2 weekends, but most often not.
Good point. Thanks for raising that, Tom. We'll talk about that.
Just making some notes here, but just making some.
Anybody on the floor would like to come up? You can certainly walk up to the microphone. If you're in the virtual audience, you can click on the participants icon at the bottom of the page and click on the little hand so you raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. So, Neil, sorry.
For the measuring systems, you mandated a 3D measuring system, but you don't want to pay for it. The only time we get paid for it is if the vehicle is anchored. So where's the payback on the investment in the equipment? You don't pay for anything under hood. That's my biggest concern right there.
Okay.
You get paid for what we're actually supposed to be doing.
Right. So we haven't mandated the 3D electronic measuring system to be accredited. That was one of those that used to be what we called in the old world that kind of tier 1 requirement. Remember, we backed away from that. And basically, in the new minimum requirements, we haven't changed the frame requirements at all. You're right, though, when we do talk about the actual, that setup time, that 2-hour setup time is when you're actually anchoring the vehicle. Measuring, though, the vehicle is a separate operation. And if there is a, like right now, I guess we'll put it this way, assessing the vehicle and for straightness and and any type of damage in some of the structures, that is being done today with trams and mechanical gauges in many cases where the shops are using it. Where there is a requirement, and we're a little bit worried about this, and we're being gentle with this requirement right now, is that there's a lot of repairs occurring today where it is calling for a 3D electronic measurement, and we know that not every shop has access to that or capability of getting to it. And so it's one of those ones where we're really trying to take, I guess we'll call it baby steps, understand the issue more and look for those opportunities to get it done. Otherwise, we are going to be requiring and taking these vehicles out of some of these shops and getting them a shop that has that equipment, right? So, that is one of our biggest challenges. So, and we keep coming up with the hail damage on a was it a Camaro, I think it was, and the requirement to basically then determine the straightness of the vehicle. So yeah, that's what we're doing there. Does that help? It's not a mandatory requirement.
Okay. One other thing on the booking in for weekends. Dealing with Alberta, we are judged on our overall use of rental cars, whereas in Saskatchewan, we're judged by each individual process. So if over 50 cars, I can save you 20 hours, but in Saskatchewan, I get one job and I'm getting a phone call, well, he's 2 days over on his rental. I'm not judged on my overall performance. If we could change to an overall performance indicator rather than individual, it would work out a lot better for us, for me anyways.
No, and that's a good point. I know that our partnership folks are working, and again, it's one supplier, but like looking at things like utilizing rental days through ARMS or some sort of method that we could really kind of look at cycle time from a different perspective, because there has been discussion about harmonizing our cycle time measurements throughout the organization, both in adjuster operations and why should they be different? And so that's a very good point. That is a good point. And I don't know, maybe you're spying on us, but we're actually talking about that. I got my phone out and talk to you.
Thank you.
Don't be shy, you guys. This is your chance. You call me every week and ask questions. You may as well ask them while they're on the line, right, Ciaran?
Yeah.
Charlie.
Hello. Grid repair.
Yes.
So using the grid repair as a guideline, I get that, but it's quite often using the grid repair to measure a repair doesn't always make the best choice when we want to do repair versus replace. Like our technicians, they're skilled and they like to get paid for their skills, but when you take like a dent that's 4.5 hours, and you know maybe you could get a used part, or that part you could actually demonstrate that it needs to be replaced rather than the technician repair it. I think using the good repair as a guideline, but the image test guys don't understand sometimes that we need a little bit more incentive for our guys to do more repair versus replace. You know what I mean?
So what would that? No, that's a good. I don't want to lose the initiative. But one of the things we talk about, you're right with the grid. Okay, it is a guideline. I've said this to every shop out there. The only person that should be looking at the grid is our image desk. Your technicians, like you said, are skilled. They know what it takes to repair that panel, right? Our image folks are using that grid system as a bit of a check and balance. It's good about 85% of the time. I think it's what we've demonstrated. One of the things to notice about it is that, yeah, when you start getting into the edge of panels, and even some of the, it's great for a flat panel where you got a dent in the middle. When you start getting over, it can create some problems. It can create some problems and some challenges, in some complex geometries, and that's kind of where that 15% probably doesn't lie in, or to incentivize. I guess my question, I kind of come up to it is that it is we're actually looking for the most economical repair, and if it can be repaired for less, which in many cases it can be, and it's generally a higher quality repair, right? I think we all agree on that, in many cases where I can repair it, I'm not going to factory seams and dislodging and, factory corrosion protection and all that other kind of good stuff. If there was those options to repair, and as a shop owner, you have a larger, we're talking going from, whatever on a parts 25% up to 70% margin on a repair hour. Where's that opportunity to sort of incentivize your technicians more? I guess I would ask you, what do you see being some way to further incentivize the technicians to make that repair decision? Because I think from a business owner and an insurer perspective, it's what's most economical and what's got the larger profit. But from a technician's perspective, what do you think is in that discussion?
I think too, one of the things Charlie's talking about, Ciaran, is that that particular panel, maybe to somebody not as skilled, it would be considered a replacement part. If a guy's got a skilled enough technician, or say they're utilizing VTAG, they can repair a panel, but even though the damage is smaller and it's in a smaller area, but it's fairly severe damage. If we can repair that, I remember back in the day, guys, and some of you in the room know this, like if SGI did the estimate and they had on there replace the fleet side on a caravan, for example, and it was a 16-hour replacement, and the panel was $700 or $800. I mean, it was routinely that Dennis Klemecki would say, "Give me the time to replace it, I'll fix it." Right? That was standard. I mean, that just said, "I'll give you the replacement time. We saved you $700 panel. Give us the time to use our skill sets." I think it's what you're talking about.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
And
So
it also fits your cycle times too.
yeah, exactly.
Quite often, I'd like to repair a panel, and like to ask the technician to repair a panel. But the technicians, they are skilled technicians, and you're using equipment like VTAG and things like that. It's a skill set that I think they need to be remunerated for more often than not. And yeah, 85% of the time, maybe even 90% of the time, the grid repair is adequate. But there's those other times when I try to demonstrate as an appraiser or as an estimator that we need more time, and it just turns into an argument, and it just drags the process up.
Correct.
So I mean, we have to have some type of arbitration available where we can show a little more time or a fair repair time, from my perspective, is adequate, rather than an image test person who's not looking at the panel or the situation.
Yeah. In fairness, we discussed this earlier this week with SGI, and Len Nargang was on the phone, and Len made it clear that the grid system is good for exactly what you said, Charlie, about 85% of the repairs. So there's that 15% zone that it doesn't work for. What we discussed with SGI, and I think we'll follow up on this, is the first thing we need to do is we need to maybe have some pretty significant training for the industry and for the image desk on how that grid system is supposed to be interpreted. And then what happens when we get to that 15% where it just doesn't fit? And, I think they're grappling with that a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ciaran, but that's something we're going to pursue in the near future.
Yeah, I was going to make a couple of comments, Tom, and very similar to what you're saying. And we recognize there's this spectrum, this range of skill amongst technicians. And we do see a number of repairs or estimates that are written where it's like, look, you guys, we really need to have partners that are capable of repairing this panel. And so that's sort of on one side. The other side of things is we do see opportunities where our partners are saying, look, your estimate, SGI wrote it, it was this way. We can actually save you some dollars, and it may not be entirely as per our policy handbook. And we are struggling internally with, we've got this team of people, and how can we kind of need to objectify everything so we can be consistent for you all. And we are struggling with this idea of how do we empower people, whether it's image or our escalated folks, to say, yeah, you can kind of make a deal on this. Our initial repair said this, but look, they're trying to work with us and save us some money. And how can we have our people consistently adjudicate those so you guys can be treated fairly that way? But at the same time, like you're saying, we do see instances where we think we might need a higher caliber or more skill in a certain technician, where we do want to push back and have that panel repaired and not replaced. So, I'm not technical. I can't get into the weeds with Charlie on those specific examples, but that's a challenge for us. We do have a will to work with you in that way. It's just a struggle for us to operationalize that and be consistent about it. So maybe Ciaran, you might have.
Well, I like what you said, and it's a good way to put it. Is we're trying not to negotiate right now. We're trying to say, how many hours does it actually take to repair that panel? And that's what we should be paying you to do it. And I know what you're talking about is saying, listen, really what you're asking is that, can we share in the cost savings a little bit, right? Is if we're able to, if an organization, if a shop is able to say, listen, we can save this panel, and instead of it taking 16 hours to repair at $700 for the panel, what if we'll give us 16 hours to repair it, we'll save you the $700, right? But yet you repair it in 12. I'm just using it as an example. Obviously, that's that incentive and that benefit. And
well, that's not what I'm really saying.
Oh,
I'm not saying you take a $1,600 panel, divide it by a number, and come up with a labor repair time. I'm just talking about sometimes there's repairs that fall outside the grid system, because we're actually looking at the panel and we're looking that it takes a little bit more technical skill to repair that panel that you can't really measure. And we'd like a little bit more leniency.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, and that right there, that's one of those ones. Now that's something we can work with a lot easier. And not that the other thing can't be done too, because I think that's an interesting approach as well, though. And but we are going to continue to work with our escalated team and make sure that those are going up the escalated chain. And one of the things we've been trying to do is actually right now, for example, we've been working with Regina Auto Body, and we've been asking for opportunity to bring some of our escalated team in and some of our seniors for actually when they are completing a BTAG repair on a panel that especially is unique and kind of falling out of that norm, to really get us in the room with them and start reviewing some of those. So that is something we've started to do already. Mike and Chad had us in their facility, socially distanced with the proper PPE on and hand sanitizer, but and to go in and look and really get a little bit of a hands-on experience with our team, and that's us helping us understand better exactly some of the challenges you folks are having, so that we can negotiate, if that's the right word, really a better time that's more reflective. And I think because there's two issues here, and I know we had the same discussion even about plastic repair, right? About there are these opportunities where we've got an opportunity to save some things and maybe have a little bit of that profit share, that savings sharing, right? And it is mutually beneficial. So it's like Tom said, and even like you said, and you did mention yourself, the rover would come in and he'd say, yeah, I'll give you the repair, the full flat rate repair time on this and or R&R time, and to do the repair. So yeah, we're going to continue to work on it. We have started to work on it. We are getting our technicians into the shops that have BTAG so that we can have these types of discussions, and we are working to make sure that those falling outside of this are escalated. That was a commitment we made a year ago to the minister. that we're going to create that repair versus replace decision gets escalated to a technician. And in those cases, we need to maybe work with them more. Maybe we need to have a little bit of a working group with, say, the SAR folks, and get all of our escalated reviewers and auditors in the same room with a highly technical group of repairers, and have that discussion and talk about opportunities to do this. So when it gets escalated to them, they can do a better job of allowing.
Right. Yep. I got one more question, Ciaran. We're almost out of time, but I got Leighton from Macklin on the line, if you don't mind, Leighton.
Hey, Leighton. You're muted there, bud.
You're muted, Leighton. You got to unmute.
Oh, you just muted yourself back on again.
Good. Does that work? So is there any chance that there's work being processed? I know you had talked about it a bit yesterday, but just as far as on the assignment details, when we're getting dispatched a job, we do get all the details and the report costs sometimes, as long as the receptionist is taking down the information and adding it in there. But when we're downloading claims that your guys' employees have wrote, they don't have any kind of information as far as, sometimes even the customer is willing to admit that there's panel damage. I
think we lost Leighton. Leighton, I think your connection is
there. Sorry, my bad. But just getting more details and stuff on those estimates that we're downloading, that basically can sometimes, like I say, a customer even admits that some panel damage isn't related, and it would save us having to be honest with you, trying to spend hours getting a hold of claim reps and stuff like that just to get some information.
Yep. No, that is an awesome question. And you're absolutely right. There's two processes, like we mentioned. There's the one where we're dispatching directly to a shop to write the estimate. You guys are the agent, and we got to get you all the information we can get you, previous claims, whatever it is, so that you guys can write the estimate, accurate estimate, based on that specific loss incident, right? When we write them, there is no mechanism today to actually add that dispatch note. It's just, and because you know what happened? Our guys consumed it. Because so when our guys get the same stuff you do, so when we're writing an estimate, they actually get that same information, that dispatch with all that, replacement costs, all that stuff. And when they write the estimate, it goes, and it kind of goes into the ether. I have right now, honestly, the best thing I can tell you right now is that as we move forward and we're looking to keep bringing on a new system and a new claims application as part of a digital transformation strategy, this will be one of those elements that is going to be a minimum viable product element to make sure that we can get you guys all the information regardless of who wrote the estimate. Yeah, but right now, unfortunately, the best thing is Appraisal's exceptions email, and I apologize. That's a systems issue, but that's an awesome question.
Okay, well, I appreciate the feedback.
We've taken the note.
Good stuff. One more question from the floor. We have Ben, and then we're going to have to go to Toronto here right away. So, Ben, you're the last guy.
Okay, so the way I understand it with the new accreditation program, we're CCC certified, OEM certified through Certified Collision Care, correct? So that would qualify us for to be accredited in the new accreditation program.
Correct.
So my question is, CCC does not require us to be ICAR Gold class, okay? But SGI still requires us to be SGI Gold class. And I have a bit of a complaint about that because this year ICAR changed all its requirements. And so my estimators, I think they took 14 classes to be ICAR Gold class last year. And this year they had to take an additional 16 classes just to maintain their platinum status. And I'm just wondering why we're sticking with ICAR Gold class when these OEM certification programs don't require it.
So great question. And actually, and I'm sorry, you don't have to have gold class if you're CCC certified. We actually addressed it at the previous in March, and we kind of sent some info out. We're accepting the CCC, the Assured Collision, their parent company, the Assured Collision matrix, training matrix as an equivalence. So that will, if you're OE certified or CCC certified, you're done. That's all you need. In fact, all of the rest of the accreditation stuff is all for people that aren't OE certified. So we're trying to base a minimum requirement, and essentially, if you're OE certified, you're good to go because they've managed all that for us. It's all done. So, have you made application for your 15 grand?
Oh yeah, we've received the 15 grand.
Okay, well that means you're good. Like that means that you're done. You're clean. You're good. Now, that said, the folks who aren't OE certified or aren't OE certified, yes, ICAR did break it up. They took it and they actually almost doubled the number of classes, but they also made them half as long. So and a lot of them are half hour, 20-minute versus 3 hour, like absolute. Like 3 hours is a tough haul when you're talking about foams and adhesives, and but you kind of get through it, and I know it is riveting, but you're right. That said, they may have made them shorter, but the costs have incrementally increased as well. So I get it, but yes, if you're not always certified, you are required to have a gold class.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Benny. Ryan and Ciaran, again, thank you very much for taking time on weekends and stuff and all the meetings we've had. I just got to tell you, thanks for keeping in touch with us, and look forward to talking to you soon. We are going to go to see Leanne
Thanks,
Jeffries.
guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Bet. You take care.